One of the biggest mistakes I see with tendon pain is that people think they only have one problem. They think that they overloaded the tendon. And sometimes that's true. But here is what newer tendon research is starting to show us, that a healthy tendon cannot exist without being loaded. Let me say that again. A tendon that never gets loaded will not stay healthy. And that is a huge shift in how we need to be thinking about tendons with our patients, especially the patients that complain of tendon pain who are sedentary. So for a lot of years, when people were having tendon pain, let's say your Achilles hurts, you're told to rest, right? Patellar tendon hurts, rest. The hamstring tendon is bothering you, time to rest. Rotator cuff is hurting, guess what? Time to rest. And if the resting isn't working, then rest some more, right? But the problem is that's often where people start to get stuck in that tendon pain loop. Tendons are living tissues. The cells inside of your tendons are constantly asking one question: how much load am I dealing with right now? Because that's what will tell the tendon how to adapt. Build a little more collagen, reorganize the tissues, start to stay strong, start to stay resilient. Or if there's none of that tension signaling, it starts to lose capacity. This is the part that everybody tends to understand, is if you double your running mileage, or you start to jump every day when you haven't been jumping before, or you decide I'm going to go from training 2 days a week to 6 days a week, your tendons are going to say something to you like, I'm not ready for this. And then you may have pain start to show up. And those kinds of things make sense. But too little load isn't quite as logical for people. And this is what ended up surprising a lot of the researchers in this paper, was the opposite happens to the tendon when it's underloaded. You take a load away long enough and the tendon will start to change. Collagen production in the tendon begins to slow down. The tissues start to become less organized to handle tension, and then there starts to become an increase in inflammatory signaling from the cells of the tendon structure. So now the tendon is slowly becoming less prepared for even normal daily activities. And this is why someone can rest for the next 8 weeks, start going back into running, and the tendon is still going to hurt. And it has nothing to do with the resting failing. It has to do with the tendon reorganizing itself because it's not being challenged. And then you start to challenge it again. It's not ready. So this is where I spend a lot of time talking about dosage. The goal is not zero loading. The goal isn't maximal loading. The goal is going to be enough load so that we can start to stimulate some adaptations in the tendon. And that's the sweet spot. And it can be difficult to find because it's going to be different for different tendons. It's going to be different for different people depending on where they're at in their life and their training. So let's say something like your Achilles starts to hurt. And instead of stopping doing everything, maybe we just start by reducing the volume of your running. Add in some heavy calf raises to your week. Start managing that weekly mileage a little bit, rebuilding some capacity, monitor the symptoms, and change our mileage, change our mileage and our calf work accordingly. And now we're doing some rehabilitation, right? We're building back up slowly. We're not avoiding things, we're adapting, and that's the goal. So notice this might sound familiar. This is the same kinds of things we've learned from disc herniations and arthritis and low back pain and shoulder pain. The body will adapt. If you give it absolutely nothing, then it has nothing to adapt to. And if you give it too much, it can't keep up with, it can't adapt fast enough for the rate at which you're asking it to adapt. So it's always tricky to find that middle ground with people, especially when they're really inflamed. So the question is never, should I rest? The question is, what's the most that I could do today that my tendon can successfully recover from? And that is the kind of question that is going to change how you approach these tendon issues as a person or as a provider. So just remember, healthy tendons, they need loading, and they are not built by avoiding load. They are built by adapting to load.